Millions upon millions of years ago, life on planet Earth was born. As millennia passed and civilizations rose and fell, humanity learned to build monuments, create complex symphonies, develop mathematics, and make great works of art. Is that a space penis? Such an astral appendage would have to have taken a lot of money to make, right?
Black budget is the budget for the U.S. spy services, which include the CIA and the NSA and about 14 other agencies. So it's the total budget for espionage for the U.S. government. We've never had such an extensive view into the spending of these agencies because they've always been classified, and that's why we call it the black budget.
I started to wonder, how much does it really cost to draw an intergalactic dong on Mars? Where did all our money go? And that led me to deeper research into black budgets, real-life Star Wars, and top-secret space projects that have been revealed by whistleblowers and even government's own documents, if you know where to look. In 2004, NASA's Mars rover created the most expensive penis the world had ever seen. Crude artwork, made with its 6 wheels and parallel tracks. Was it really just an innocent mistake, or an interstellar FU to the galactic community and Earthlings alike that show us where our hard-earned tax dollars are really going? I'm going to show you everything I found about black budget projects, NASA's invisible twin, and more, and then you can decide what it all means. Join me, Rob Counts, for this metaphysical episode into the secret space budgets behind the world's most expensive penis. A lot of people think that NASA is the big bad wolf who swallows our tax dollars and spits out rockets that don't do much for our day-to-day lives. Of course, everyone thinks space is cool, but we all have a lot of bills to pay and mouths to feed, and nothing in this world is free. So when NASA doesn't seem to give back much for the amount of frickin' money that goes in, people are ready to label them as the big problem. But as I researched this, I found that NASA's just the tip of a massive iceberg.
That's what she said. Excuse me? That's what she said.
Let me jump back in time when classified budgets were first established to protect against foreign threats like atomic bombs. And for that, we gotta go back to the Cold War. In its later years, classified budgets were soaring to astronomical heights. For example, in 1985, President Reagan's budget included a military project that was codenamed Aurora, but no further description or explanation was given. What was it? Aurora caught people's attention because the projected budget for it showed the cost soaring from $80 million in 1986 to $2.3 billion in 1987. So in just 1 year, they wanted a 2,775% budget increase just for this one mystery project, which turned out to be a $60 million stealth bomber equal to the combined annual budgets of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania at the time. Where did the extra budgeted $2.24 billion go? They shot it off in a rocket into space, burning your tax dollars to smithereens? What if that's not as far-fetched as you'd think? In 1995, the Tampa Tribune published an article called NASA's Invisible Twin. It said, quote, "We have 2 federally funded space agencies, one civil, one military. The first is expected to accomplish assigned tasks, is held accountable for spending, and is open to public debate. The second is secret, cashes blank checks and remains shielded from scrutiny. Tucked into the Pentagon's black budget, the space program is, in a way, invisible," unquote. Dang. Considering that the government has a secret non-public organization that spends unlimited amounts of money on these programs, how does it all work?
How do you get funding for something like this? You don't actually think they spend $20,000 on a hammer, $30,000 on a toilet seat, do you?
Now, if you're watching this video, I want you to go down to the comments and give me your best guess of how expensive this space penis was. And if you don't want to comment, keep watching because I'm about to tell you in a few minutes anyway, right after I go through these whistleblower claims that are probably going to blow your mind.
In 2010, when I arrived for the summer season at the South Pole, I was, of course, given the same lines of information, or misinformation as it may be, that was given to everybody else and the general public about what was going on at the station.
Eric Hecker worked for the Raytheon Polar Services at the South Pole Station in Antarctica. He was told that the purpose of the Ice Cube Station, as they called it, was to use a very powerful neutrino detector to observe what was going on at a microscale. But he soon discovered there was much more to the story. I want you to hear this whistleblower testimony for yourself, because I have some commentary I'll share about what it all means. One way that money can be hidden is by throwing it into private contracts with groups that officially have no link with government activities. Private companies would provide the government with much easier ways to hide technological development.
Now that we have that cover story out of the way, let's get down to the brass tacks of what the Ice Cube neutrino detector is actually doing. That each of the DOMs embedded in the ice is not simply just a passive receiver, but can actively transmit at up to 2,047 volts per DOM. The Ice Cube neutrino detector is in fact the world's largest phased array transmitter. That makes it the world's largest multifaceted directed energy weapons system.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. The South Pole's neutrino detector doesn't just passively look at neutrinos, but can shoot out frickin' laser beams as directed energy weapons. And it's not just weaponry down there either. Heck revealed that the Ice Cube neutrino detector can do a whole lot more. Now, another whistleblower, Gary McKinnon, hacked NASA's computer system between 2001 and 2002, and he found that there is an off-world fleet of spaceships that have been used for quite some time. Only those with special access are even allowed to know they exist. Who funded these off-world spaceships? The government claimed McKinnon caused $700,000 in damages to their systems, and he would have faced serious jail time if he had been extradited from Britain to the United States. Well, Eric Hecker referenced McKinnon's findings when he went public with his own whistleblower testimony, because while he was at the South Pole, Hecker found a whole lot more specifics about the black budget space travel. After all, when you've confirmed that faster-than-light travel exists, like McKinnon's documents had proved, the next step is figuring out faster-than-light communication.
Obviously, if we send ships out into the cosmos, we will certainly need a means to communicate with the crew. Well, folks, this is yet another feather in the cap of the Ice Cube neutrino detector's capabilities. Faster-than-light communications are required for any space-faring species, and I'm here to let you know that this facility is in fact located at the South Pole Station in Antarctica. In addition to its ability to provide the long-range communications, the detector has yet another trick up its sleeve. It turns out that highly advanced ships with their exotic propulsion systems, whether from this planet or not, I should say, can discharge neutrinos.
Holy space penis, Batman. This guy is saying that the purpose of this tech is to communicate with spaceships traveling around up there. Communication systems, neutrinos, the South Pole, what's the point here? Well, scientists have found that it's easier to enter and exit space from the South Pole because of gravitational effects on the Earth. Given the South Pole Station's communication setup, Hecker soon realized that he wasn't just looking at a few laboratories set up in the ice, but that it was an air traffic control type of facility for activities both on and off the planet, even at exceptionally great distances. Now, this sounds hard to believe. Let me give you some specific examples. Now, the Ice Cube neutrino detector can actually impact the planet's magnetic field. So because of that, the South Pole Station set up a way to monitor it with an extremely low frequency system, or ELF. When he first got to the South Pole Station, though, Hecker's crew was told that the ELF system was unfortunately dysfunctional and deactivated. But then, when he had to make a repair and saw for himself that the ELF was on and asked someone about it, he found out he'd been lied to. The monitoring equipment was energized and operational permanently.
I must admit, I was kind of shocked to find out that the system was up and running, knowing that it was a massive antenna array also embedded in the ice beneath us. I later learned, through my ability to go from compartment to compartment, that there was a scientist on staff whose responsibility was to gather all of the information from the ELF system and send it back to our headquarters in Colorado every single day.
But why would it matter if there is a massive antenna and communication system set up at the South Pole? Well, that communication hacker found was going out into space, and it revealed the secret black budget project that was really going on at the South Pole. Forget drawing dongs on Mars when high-powered spaceships can draw whatever they want in the sky. What are they doing out there in the cosmos? One shocking sight he encountered, he was told, was just part of the science being performed down there. But then he realized the truth.
That on many occasions, I was privy to seeing a green laser beam firing out of the top corner of the building, going vertically up and out into space. And it was a sustained burn, I guess you would say. That thing just fired and just stayed on the whole time that I was walking. So what the science folk that I had communicated with, they basically said it takes a god-awful amount of power just to have these green lasers just fire for a fraction of a second. Takes a lot of power, and this was sustained.
Oh, it's just part of the science down here, that's all. Let's not use your heads and think about it past that. So just a fraction of a second takes an enormous amount of power, and this thing was just firing off sustained laser beams. This kind of energy takes tons of power. To generate the power, you need the money to keep the equipment going, right? So where does the money come from? I'll get back to that soon with what I found in articles and documents, because the black budgets go pretty deep.
Currently, my research into what may really be going on at the Arrow facility is ongoing, but would appear that it may also be a form of long-range communications and or a system of defense. We must understand that whether we believe that there is a presence worthy of creating such defense systems or not, the military-industrial complex absolutely loves spending your money on such things. You all may be asking yourselves right now, what is powering all of this high-tech equipment down at the South Pole? That is, of course, an excellent question.
That is an excellent question. Well, clearly it's the same stuff powering the space penis, and I'm about to prove it. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the total price of the space schlong. In 2003, 2 rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, were launched to explore the Martian surface. Spacecraft development and launch cost about $744 million, and mission operations over 15 years cost $335.8 million. Between the 2 rovers, that was about $1.08 billion, or about $540 million apiece. That's nuts. Pun intended. So how much does it cost to draw a penis on Mars? We have our grand total. Looks like NASA got themselves in a real pickle. How close were you to the total? Celebrate below in the comments, but don't go anywhere because I'm going to reveal the exact numbers from the classified budgets I found, and the total cost is going to, well, let's just say that it's gonna be hard to deny. Honestly, with this black budget stuff, we could go all day long.
You really think you can go all day long? Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling, so...
That's what she said. Michael.
Classified budgets were established during the Cold War to protect against foreign threats like atomic bombs. But in 1995, the government's General Accounting Office had estimates that the classified space budget continued to rise even after the end of the Cold War. So my question is, how high did this classified space budget rise? The Defense Department declined to comment on the overall black program, of course, because it was classified for national security reasons. But military analysts believed it made up roughly an eighth of the Defense Department's $260 billion in expenses. Yo, and this was 1995, y'alls. In 2024 dollars, that's $66.9 billion for the black budget. Another estimate from the General Accounting Office reportedly put spending at $38 billion on the black research and development back then, which is about $78 billion today. And to tell you the truth, I think these are pretty conservative estimates. Why? The Tampa Tribune wrote that the top secret space program hides behind the doors of the National Reconnaissance Office at the Pentagon and for all practical purposes doesn't exist. But hang on, how do we know this is accurate? The director of the space policy for the Federation of American Scientists said that there really wasn't a military space budget at all per se. The number the Pentagon will give you might be about the size of NASA's budget, but there's another budget the size of NASA that they won't tell you about. Nobody knows what it is. So when you have unlimited untracked funds to create and test whatever you want, what happens? That's where it gets interesting.
That would mean there would be no consequences. There would be no hangovers. We could do whatever we wanted.
In 1987, the Philadelphia Inquirer investigated the Defense Department's records and concluded that secret spending for classified programs overall totaled at least $35 billion a year. That was 11% of the Pentagon's spending request, which the paper said was split evenly between funds for secret weapons and funds for intelligence agencies. In today's dollars, that's $96.6 billion. For context, this black budget at the time was nearly as big as the entire federal budget for healthcare and far bigger than the federal budgets for education, transportation, agriculture, and the environment. Did you hear what I just said? The Inquirer found that the black budget's fastest growing component was secret spending on military research and development, which was 3 times bigger than the entire budget for the State Department and growing. Amazingly, national security laws forbid any public debate in Congress that would reveal specific weapons or specific dollars or even specific screw-ups in the black budget. Only a select few members of Congress are given limited information about some black programs if they happen to oversee military or intelligence efforts. So how do we know it exists? With that many dollars and people involved, leaks happen. In a particular budget, you might see a several billion-dollar line item over here, another few billion over there, and they're hidden under names like selected activities or other production charges or special programs. They're even racking up $7,000 coffee pots and $600 screws. Yeah, right. But think about if you or I did that to the IRS on our personal taxes. Sure, I spent $4 million on production costs, but they don't know my camera and teleprompter only really cost a few thousand. I'd get thrown in prison. So is this a democracy or a heavy taxation shakedown to go draw dongs on Mars and pocket the rest? You know, I do think there are plenty of corruption problems for the politicians to figure out in our country, but the scariest part is that when we blame Congress for this kind of secret spending, they might not even have enough information themselves to keep track of where all this money is going and what secret accounts even exist. It's a problem with the system. Shockingly, when the scientists at the South Pole first tried to turn on their telescope, when it was first constructed, they encountered major radiation interference nobody expected. They finally figured out the radiation was coming from below the ice, moving upward. With other things Eric Hecker's team saw, he's pretty positive there's a nuclear power supply there. So my next question is, did Eric Hecker ever see a UFO while he was in Antarctica? That'd corroborate some of the claims that this is an outer space communication station. As a matter of fact, he did.
I saw a UFO at the South Pole Station. I was walking from the dark sector back towards the elevated station in the dark of winter. 93 feet of elevation is a clear view to a clear view for God only knows how many miles I was looking at. Clear as day, I saw the biggest fireball I could possibly imagine rip across the entirety of that horizon line like that. Pin straight. It didn't go from up. It didn't go down. It didn't make any other motion other than completely straight, completely fast. The biggest fireball. I can't explain what I saw, but you cannot convince me that it wasn't a controlled flight path. Too fast, too straight. Or it was the biggest meteor that never hit the planet and everyone missed it.
When Pompeii was uncovered, the place was full of penis art. Not space penises, but penis art. The Roman Empire had displayed phallic wind chimes, erotic art, and a plethora of brothels. Ancient Greek pottery has uncovered yet more degenerate art with dongs and all manner of things that I won't even show here. And you know what they all had in common? These once great civilizations each crashed and burned. So what does it say about us when humanity starts drawing penises on Mars?
What is it, son?
I don't know, sir. But it looks like a giant dick.
Yeah.
Take a look out of starboard.
Oh my God, it looks like a huge...
Pecker!
Oh, where?
Wait, that's not a woodpecker. It looks like someone...
Two balls! What is that? That looks just like an enormous wank.
Well, let's pause the black budget estimates and just talk about the budgets that are public knowledge. Allegedly, there have been 6 successful Mars rovers that went to the Red Planet between 1997 and 2021. There have also been nearly 24 Mars landers that have been sent there to just stay in one spot. The Phoenix mission, which was a Mars lander, cost $420 million. It was launched in August of 2007, got there in May, dug around with its robotic arm for 6 months, hoping to find evidence of microbial life, then died a cold death in the dark Martian winter. The astronomical budget had $321 million going to spacecraft development, $86 million going to its launch, and $12.6 million for its primary mission. So they spent $28 million a month for 15 months just to abandon the entire frickin' thing and all the equipment there and never hear from it again. And remember, it was a whole lot more to send the rover that drew the dong because that piece of equipment could actually move around. One NASA document talked about the cost of the International Space Station, ISS, and pegged it, that's what she said, at $150 billion back in 2010. The Washington Post put it at $160 billion, with the United States providing a bulk of the money, nearly $100 billion. Russia, Europe, Canada, and Japan chipped in for the rest. Whatever the final dollar amount, NASA and Washington Post both said the ISS is arguably the most expensive single item ever constructed. Or is it? You could argue that there are necessary expenses if you value space research, but knowing what we know about black budgets and the black hole that is the secret space program where our tax dollars are disappearing, what if all these billions of dollars were budgeted with some cushioning? In January of 2023, it was reported that NASA spent $35 million on wasteful software licenses and fees. They're not able to approve and track their purchases and accumulate software fines, penalties, and overpayments. But yeah, you owing the IRS $200 because you miscalculated on your taxes is a big deal, right?
I found these two accounting books. This one says, show to the IRS.
And what's the other one say?
Never. Show to the IRS.
You know, Donald Rumsfeld might have given some hints about where all of our money was disappearing.
Our financial systems are decades old. According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions. We cannot share information from floor to floor in this building because it's stored on dozens of different technological systems that are inaccessible or incompatible. We maintain 20 to 25% more base infrastructure than we need to support our forces, at an annual waste to taxpayers of some $3 to $4 billion. Fully half of our resources go to infrastructure and overhead.
Holy crap! In February of 2000, the Department of Defense published an audit of the entire agency for the 1999 fiscal year. Or at least they tried. Unfortunately, $2.3 trillion was not supported by adequate audit or trials or sufficient evidence to determine their validity, and $2 trillion more was not reviewed due to time constraints. In July that year, the Assistant Inspector General of the Department of Defense corroborated the numbers in his testimony before a Budget Committee task force. Finally, the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld himself, mentioned the lost $2.3 trillion to reporters on, get this, September 10th, 2001. I'm not going to make any conclusions on what that means. You can think about it for yourself. So where did the money go? I don't know. So you might be asking, Rob, what do you think about this? Well, taking a step back and looking at this from the outside, the military has always operated partly in shadow. With the evidence we've shown here, I mean, there could be multiple black budgets assigned to these space projects that the public would have no way of knowing about because it would actually be viewed as a threat to national security. You have to ask yourself, if the people controlling NASA or even one individual from NASA were behind the controversial space penis, the galactic genitalia, the Mars member, if you will, if they're that brazen with the money they're getting to fund their space initiatives, then what does that really mean for NASA as a whole? I mean, it's a funny joke. To be specific, a $540 million penis joke. I mean, how could you not laugh? No way did the Romans from Pompeii come even close to this. But perhaps the joke really is on us, and there's a whole lot more going on around NASA that even NASA doesn't know about. And if you ask me, we'd be foolish not to consider that. But what do you think? Leave me a comment with what you found about the secret space program and black budgets. Like this type of content and want more, please think about supporting our work by pledging on our website, themetaphysical.tv. With your help, we can actually give you a lot more exclusive content. The supporters will get to watch exclusive episodes like What Really Happened to Scientists Who Dared to Talk About Anti-Gravity. So definitely check that out. That was a bombastic episode. Remember to like and subscribe to help the channel grow as well. And if you want to hear longer conversational episodes, our Metaphysical podcast dived into more details of Eric Hecker's testimony, the secrets of Mars, remote viewing, the ET threat that UFO whistleblower David Grush wouldn't name, and UFOs around Chernobyl. Those were awesome episodes. If you like Metaphysical merch, check out the products I designed as well, which you can get by visiting the link in the description. You can also get a bag of delicious Metaphysical coffee every month if you want your mornings to be stellar or interstellar, without a space penis, of course. And with that, I hope you thought this episode was out of this world. Unfortunately, HR has alerted to me that I am no longer allowed to say vulgar puns. Puns such as galactic genitalia, astral anaconda, flying Johnson, space schlong, celestial knob, astral appendage, space penis, stellar salami, space pickle, Mars mushroom tip. Who wrote this? Ruby rocket, interstellar ice cream cone, Mars meat popsicle, celestial chode, controversial space knob, space snake, space wiener, celestial cock, Mars Seriously, who wrote this list? Well, fortunately, HR is me, so this ain't gonna stop anytime soon.